Hi all, good morning. So guys, yesterday I was traveling and could not able to take the call. And after reaching home also it was like power outage at this particular place. So let us continue with our discussion on the API. So we covered the JSON format, which is an output of our API response, and also we discussed about the API and what are the different properties we required when in order to consume the APIs, and also we discuss different API methods and what are the different API types we have, the framework types, and we saw what are the different applications we have to test our APIs, and also we have seen like what are the different types of errors and how we can consume the APIs. We have the activity and we saw the response codes as well, right? So other than 200, it will be considered as an error. The success response code is 200. Okay. And let us see by making some sample API calls. Okay. And let us see how we can do it. And I'm using this website, request request REST API. So this is the website which I'm using, like in order to make my API calls of different methods. So if you see, right, we have all the methods here. Okay. So let us see some get, post, and delete. We'll see all each and every of the thing of this. And let us get a request. Okay. Use this get request. And when you see this slash API slash users, which means like it is like in line with this, whatever we have on the URL. So use URL plus this will be considered as your complete endpoint. So let us do one thing. Just take this. Or else like I directly I can take this. Let us try to do a get call with this. So for that, we will be using HTTP, and we already installed the web API package in order to have the JSON. So in the similar way, we will be having this. Click on configure. So here I'll be putting the URL. Right. So, so here is the here is the endpoint where we will be making our API calls, and we have the method type. What are the different types of methods we have in APIs? We have all the methods. So based on the documentation or the type of call we are making, we need to select that particular method. So here it is a get request because you want to get all the users we have in the page number 2. Okay. And accept responses. Like we can have a JSON response or an XML response, or it can be any custom response as well. Like see, this depends on the target API. See, that will be available in the API documentation only. Here it is JSON. If you see here it is in the JSON format. Sometimes it might be in XML format because the rest will support both JSON and XML. But majority of the cases, it will be JSON. So whatever the output we are getting, that format we need to select, and we can mark it as like any. It will accept everything. Parameters, in case if you want to add any, if you need to pass any variable values and all, along with this, we may require this. Sometimes we may need to send the API key that will go on the headers. So we can see all this in the documentation of the API. And let me see if we can cover somewhere with some authenticated APIs as part of our project, then we will do that. But this is a very simple API keys, API, whatever we are using. So like there will be for authentication, right? Like it can be of API key, or you may require that PD that API may require some additional input parameters which we may need to pass in. So those we will be adding here, and all those will be having in the detailed documentation of the APIs. Okay. And if you want, you may need to send some files. In the GET request, it is not required, but in the POST required, you may need to send a file to the server. So in those scenarios, we will be using. Let me change it to POST. See here, add attachment is enabled, which means like when we are sending a POST request, when we are putting some data into the server, at that time, we may need to send an attachment. So in the GET, it will not be available. And authentication, what type of authentication your API supports? Is it a simple HTTP or OAuth 1 or OAuth 2? So OAuth 1 and 2 are a bit complex compared to the simple, because if you select simple, right, just need to pass in the username and password. But when you select this OAuth, you need to pass consumer key, consumer secret, access token, and access secret. So all these details we need to generate on top of the application, and all these details you will be having as part of your API documentation. So, or if in case if you are going with auth 2, like we need to give the access token. But here does not require any APIs. So we are just clicking on none. Now you can timeout is like similar timeout only. Like maximum time it will wait for the API to respond back with the response. Okay. Let us click on preview. See here, we got the data. So when we say the preview, it will help you to see whether it is the API call, whatever we are making is correct or not. So here we are getting 200 status code, which means it is correct. And we can see the response preview as well. So it depends on API to API, but we should focus on here. And sometimes you will get some errors when you are making the preview, uh, but it may work when you execute it. So like in case if you know that whatever the parameters you are passing is everything is correct, still you are getting errors, then you can ignore it. But that will reflect here in the HTTP request when we execute. Even when we are executing also, if we are getting an error, then we should consider it. And now let us go to the output. Where is the output? Response content. So we have str. Let us create str API response content. Go with the API response status. So we have given response status and response time. Okay. So let us write a log message here. Str response status. See here, I got the response code as 200 and response content is this. Okay. So, which means now my response code will status will tell me whether my API response is successful or not. Let us do one thing. Let us go to the request URL, which is my endpoint, and let me put 23 here instead of 2. Click on OK, save. So we have 23rd page as well. And let us do one thing. Let us go 230, page number 230, and run the file. We are getting some other data. Uh, let's go. Okay, for now, let us go with this. Remove it and see. Okay, we'll see. Somewhere we will be getting some single user not from. Yeah, we can take this user ID. Let us go here. Let us put this as an endpoint and see. So we got 404, which means like the date we got the status of error. It is not success. And so similarly, you can try all of this get requests. And before I go for post or something, right? Uh, let us go to RPA challenge. So we have this file to download, right? We can click on this download. It will be automatic. We need to click on save. This will be downloaded, and we need to check whether the file download is completed or not. Sometimes depends on the server. It may take time, and there is a possibilities of UI failures when we are trying to download this. So let us try to do this in a different way. Okay. Get attribute. Let me go with the classic. So in this, we will be having href, which means the endpoint of this particular element. Okay. Let's get the endpoint and let us see whether it is a full URL or a partial URL. So let us check it out. So which means it is a partial URL because you are getting that assets, downloads, and challenge.xlsx. When you see this .xlsx is involved, we can identify that this can be a downloadable. Okay? This can be a downloadable file. Okay? Let us click on OK. Let's go here and let us add this also to the existing. So this is my endpoint. Let us consider this as an endpoint and let us put this as a request URL. You need to log into a system when you are trying to download this file, then this will go as a simple authentication. Okay. In case if you are directly doing with the like your documentation is a bit different, then you need to follow based on your documents. Here you have response attachment, right? Uh, Sorry, it is not for the response attachment. We need to go for file name for the response attachment. So where you want to store this file, right? Let me put file dot xlsx and let us run and see this. So here is my file dot xlsx. So with the HTTP request or the API automation, we can download the files also. So the advantage of using this HTTP or the API to download the file is we can avoid the UI based errors and also uh, to check whether the file is completely downloaded or not, that can be taken care by the API instead of like checking whether the file is available or not. And sometimes the file might be available and it will take time for the whole file to be get reflected. Are we clear on this, guys? Guys, can you hear me out or no? Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Then let us do the post. There is nothing much. When we see, right, like it will not be having very much. So the request is this. I can remove this, delete this. I'll go to the endpoint. I'll put this users.
But let's say if we want to basically extract some particular element, right? I think that we can also do it right here.
Sorry.
Basically that we can also do it, right? We can extract that particular element of that JSON content, right?
Yeah, so that we covered 2 sessions back, right? If you see the first
Uh-huh.
session, we covered completely on the JSON elements only. So I'm leaving
Okay,
up to
okay.
you guys to practice that, because I don't
Mhm.
want to put the keep on saying the JSON again and again. So you just use this get activity and get the value of the tag again. So that will be in
Okay.
your practice. Okay? Let us run this file and see. 201 which is created. File is got details are got created, which means the post is working. So what differently we did from the get to the post? See, we supplied one more detail under the body. So we sent these details as part of the body, and this worked out. Like this is the additional thing which we used in order to make the post response. Okay. So you can give a try for all this. And in case if you are facing any issues, right, then just let me know so that like we can work together as once you face any issues. Not only this, you can figure out multiple APIs we have in the internet over the internet, and you can try all those. Okay. I think we covered with almost all the topics except the invoking and the RG framework. So from which means like we are about to complete our curriculum except the projects by this weekend, because we can cover the invoke activities tomorrow and the RE framework for the next 2 days. And we will be starting with the projects from the next week. So yeah. So tomorrow's session will be invoking of workflows, invoking of methods, invoking of your code, and all these invoke activities and the arguments we are going to discuss. And let me know, guys, if you have any questions. Practice these APIs, okay?
Okay, Pathya.
Oh, sorry, guys. We have debugging and
Exception handling is
exception
there.
handling.
Exception handling is also
Yeah,
there, yeah.
yeah. After invoke, we will first cover the invoke and then we will come to the debugging. Debugging and
Mhm.
exception handling is there. I forgot. And after that, we will come to the prerequisites of RE framework and then to the RE framework. Okay.
Mhm.
Debugging is very much important topic, man. Sorry. So I request like to practice these APIs, which is because see the questions will not go out of like whatever we discussed for sure. So not having any questions, we'll wrap up the session, and I'll send the meeting invite for tomorrow. And the meeting time will be 10:30 only. Let us put 10:30, like because couple of times, right, it is getting delayed. So I'll keep it 10:30 every day.
Sure, sure, Pathya.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone.